There's an ancient bit of military wisdom you might have heard that goes something like this. You go to war with the army you have, not the army you might want or wish you had at a later time. Applied to the clone army, the Galactic Republic basically hit the jackpot. The army they had and the army they wanted were pretty much identical. Over the course of the Clone Wars, the Grand Army of the Republic proved itself to be one of the finest military forces ever assembled, inflicting terrible defeats on the numerically superior Separatist droid armies. But if the timing of the Clone Wars had just been slightly different, a Separatist victory would have been almost certain, and it all comes down to the clone troopers themselves. Now, the manpower available to any given army is going to be a pretty heavy factor in its success or failure. If you're recruiting from a normal human population, you're looking for people between the ages of 18 and 40, with maybe a few more years on either end depending on how desperate the situation is looking. Every country has a steady rate of births and deaths, so you're always going to have a sizable portion of your population within this age range. If you're reliant entirely on a clone army though, things are different. You're starting entirely from scratch, literally zero available manpower until that first wave of clones has grown and been trained. In the case of the Grand Army of the Republic and the accelerated aging used in its soldiers, the time it takes an individual clone to go from an infant to fighting age is about 10 years. But while this accelerated aging is useful for getting the clones ready to fight more quickly than they otherwise might have been able, it also reduces the number of years they can remain of fighting age from roughly 20 to just 10. And this presents a number of problems at the strategic level. The biggest problem being, a clone army would be absolutely miserable as a purely defensive or reactionary force. The transition from peacetime to wartime often occurs very quickly as events spiral out of control, and I can think of very few wars throughout history in which the defender was given 10 years of advance notice. Even a keen political mind analyzing the situation would have a great deal of difficulty determining precisely when a war would take place a decade before. If the war starts too early, your entire force might be still in diapers, and if it starts too late, you could have entire generations of soldiers too old to take part. Keeping a clone army in continuous production is one solution, but given the immense cost, it probably isn't going to be practical. So a clone army is really only useful then as an aggressive force, by a nation that can decide when and where to start hostilities, but even then, only so long as you can keep its development a secret. In war, the mobilization of an army is pretty much always enough to trigger a counter-mobilization from the other side, and a clone army is essentially a mobilization that takes 10 years. If the Separatists had found out about the clone army, say 2 or 3 years before it was ready, they'd have every incentive to immediately invade and not wait around. Darth Sidious, however, through his manipulations of both sides, was able to time things almost perfectly. The war against the Confederacy started just as the first generations of clones had reached maturity. But again, it's easy to imagine a very different situation, where the timing was off and there were simply no clones ready for the Battle of Geonosis, and the Separatists were able to advance against the Republic almost unopposed for months or maybe even years. One wrong move and the Grand Army of the Republic might have lost the Clone Wars before they even started. So unless you possess the same Machiavellian nature as Palpatine and are able to perfectly sway galactic events to suit your purposes, maybe stay away from raising a clone army. Because there's another ancient saying that goes, suppose there was a war and nobody showed up. Well, if you bet on a clone army but get the timing wrong, you'll find out what happens when there's a war and only one side shows up.